Hello.
Hi. I'm here to close out this wonderful conference. I want to thank Chris for peer pressuring me, and I want to thank everyone for joining. I've seen so many great sessions, and I like to think I know everything about Airtable, but every time I come to one of these, I learn something new. That's super great. I've titled my closing keynote to "Your Wish is My Command Line," because I thought that'd be a fun title. I guess professionally, and I put that in quotes, I go by the name Kamille, which I will get to. There is a story behind why that is. So I'm here to do three things. Number one is to infiltrate Airtable HQ. I'm in the building success. Number two, I'm going to tell you my life story. And number three, I'm going to try and solve a problem. Depending on what problems you guys throw at me, I may be able to solve it in time, or I might just give a general explanation of how one might solve it in theory. Starting with my life story. I was born in 1994 and I looked roughly like that. I don't know when that photo was taken. I was a baby, close enough. 2003. Has anyone played SimCity or more recently City Skylines? All right, a good chunk of people. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with this game. I only played a handful of video games as a kid, but there was something about SimCity that consumed all of my time. And if you haven't played it, it's a city builder. What you do, you're given a blank piece of land that might have a lake, or it might have an ocean, and you'll have an entryway into this empty plot of land, and your job is to build a city. So you're going to try and lay out your roadways. You're going to say, I'm going to put housing here, and this is going to be my commercial corridor. I'm going to try and connect everyone with infrastructure. And as a roughly 9-year-old, for whatever reason, I thought it was the funnest thing in the world, and then never thought of it again. And then I went to college, and my first year of my undergraduate degree, I actually didn't have a major. And I was in one of those English classes that you have to take for your GE. And the book that we were focusing on in my particular English class was called Bird on Fire by Andrew Ross. And the premise of the book was looking at the city of Phoenix, Arizona, and why it's, according to the author, the least sustainable city on earth. And he went over the history of how the city developed over time, the problems it's facing now, and what are some ways that cities can learn from the mistakes of Phoenix so that they can better serve their citizens over time. And I thought, oh my God, this book is amazing. And you know, you're in college, it's your first year, and the fact that I was interested in the book at all was a miracle. And I thought, wow, I wish this was a major. Turns out it was. At UC Irvine, it's called Urban Studies. So in a few years after that, I graduated with my bachelor's in urban studies from UC Irvine. For those of you in the back who cannot see, I've included my graduation cap, which reads Clever Girl. It has a velociraptor on it, and the velociraptor has his own little graduation cap. Urban Studies at UC Irvine was very theoretical and academic. I wanted more hands-on practice in the world of urban studies. I knew I wanted to really get in there and help design cities. So I decided to go and get my master's. I took a gap year and then went to USC to get my master's in urban planning, which I eventually received in 2018. So at this point in the slides, you'll start to see less and less relevant photos of the thing I'm talking about. I'm sorry. But I did include the graduation cap for my master's degree, which reads, "Fools, this isn't even my final form." The photo next to that, a few months after I graduated, I received the Academic Award of Excellence from the American Planning Association Los Angeles chapter.
Woo!
That is the organization that nationwide sort of collects all the planners and tells us what we should be studying, the best practices in the field of urban planning. 2018 is also when I started my professional career working at a private sector urban planning firm. If anyone is familiar with Victor Gruen, he is basically the architect of the original idea for the mall, which was supposed to be very pedestrian-oriented, a sort of condensed civic center, and that is the firm, his legacy firm, Gruen Associates, is where I began my professional career. Before that, I did work at an affordable housing developer and a series of other smaller planning positions, but really 2018 is when I started to do professional work going into cities and helping them sort of design for the better. A couple years after that, I also became adjunct faculty at USC. They brought me back to talk about things like Introduction to Urban Design, and I got another award from APA-LA, this time the Outstanding Young Planner Award. This was during the pandemic, so I didn't have a photo of me holding the award, and I looked and there's no photo of me and the award in the same shot, so here's me pointing at the sign for US, I don't know, I tried. I realize that a lot of people don't know what urban planning really is or what it means, so I've done 3 just examples of stuff that I've done or helped do. So the first one was the Orchard Inn. It was sort of an idea I had while I was in school. This was a class project. There is the San Gabriel Mission Playhouse, the historic theater, and next door to it was a building that had been long empty. The class assignment was think of some kind of use to go next to this historic resource that will complement it and then benefit the community in somehow. My idea for the site was to turn it into both an orchard, hence the Orchard Inn, an inn, again, and also a food hall. That was my development proposal. Class assignment happened, whatever. This is one of the projects that got me the academic award, but then a few years later, I go to San Gabriel, and what is the site now? It's a food hall. I don't get residuals for that, and I'm still mad. While at Gruen Associates, I helped on a project that is a feasibility study, the one in the center, Ontario MTC, that stands for Multimodal Transportation Center. Ontario has an international airport and about 10 different modes of transportation that lead kind of close to the airport, but not really. So our job was to find somewhere near the airport that collected about 4 different types of rail, 2 different types of bus, pedestrians, of course, bike, and then I guess regular passenger vehicles, but also this was during the time where Elon Musk announced he was going to do a boring tunnel in that same area, so now we had to do this brand new mode of transit that never existed in that fashion, and that was something that we had to take into account. For this project, I developed the siting criteria that narrowed down the general prompt of empty parcel near transit to the ones that were most suited for placing the actual transportation center. And the last example is the Chino Civic Center, which was the most recent one I helped to work on. City of Chino has a pretty old civic center, you know, City Hall, a senior center, a library, all kind of across the street from each other. Our job was to go in and analyze what is the best way to create a new civic center that consolidates all of these civic resources so things are closer together and more walkable, that revitalizes the downtown, but also allows the city to continue using its existing city hall while you're constructing, because these things take years and years and years to build. All very fun and interesting projects. So now we're at 2023, and I currently work as an Airtable configuration engineer at Apple. And normally when I say that, depending on who I'm talking to, either people I know from my planning life or people I know from my Airtable life, the response is typically, huh? Why? How'd that happen? And in order to best sort of explain that, I'm going to tell you my whole life story again, but more focused a little bit on Airtable. Starting with 1994, I was born, and I looked roughly like this. In 2006, the song Ridin' by Kamille came out. I was in the 6th grade, and the school decided for me that Kamille would be my new nickname, and it's been nearly 20 years, and it hasn't gone away. In 2012, I had computer science class in high school, and it was basically Photoshop, I was good enough at Photoshop to be recommended to design a handful of small local races t-shirts. I thought that was really fun, and for one of them, they also needed a website to be revitalized. So I took their old plain HTML website that was barely functioning, and I just made it into a WordPress. I enjoyed that, and I thought, I'm gonna be a graphic designer, I'm gonna be some type of web developer. And so when I applied to college, I applied under the computer engineering degree. So first day of orientation, I get there, and computer engineering is connecting servers and building computers with your hands, and I was like, that's not what I want. And I dropped it on my first day, and that's why I didn't have a major for my first year of college, because it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So there's a bit of a hiatus where I thought I was going to go down this road of computer sciencey type stuff, and ended up doing a whole bunch of planning. Enter 2018. I am in my last year of grad school. I have some kind of research project where I know I need some kind of database, but I don't want to make a SQL or something like that. I'm Googling what is a simple relational database, and Airtable comes up. I'm like, great, I use it for my grad school project, I'm done. And then I start to use it for more and more personal projects, and I end up having some question that I go to the community forums for. I get it answered, but then for whatever reason, it basically became my homepage for the next few years, where I would go in and I would just answer other people's questions. And as of, I think I took the screenshot Monday, I have 419 solutions on the Airtable forums. If that sounds like a lot, it kind of is, but I also looked it up, and Kavan has like 616, so you know, I'm not number one, but I do have quite a few. And because I was so involved in the Airtable community forums, in 2019, the Built on Air podcast contacted me and said, hey, do you want to do an episode, back when it was in an interview format? And I said, sure. And later that year, they said, do you want to be a host? And I was like, I guess. That's a little weird. I'm an urban planner, but I'll have this podcast about Airtable. How random and strange. But I said yes, and same year, Allie and I both became co-hosts, and we're still co-hosts now with Dan. It's been that way since 2019. And then in 2020, Airtable released the custom blocks API. Back in my day, they weren't extensions, and they weren't apps, they were blocks. They had this contest where you could create your own block, and depending on how it's judged, you might win a bit of money, and it'll be in the then unnamed marketplace. And blocks/apps/extensions are made out of React. I had never built anything in React. I had done a little bit of JavaScript from that random WordPress site before, but nothing like a tool, nothing complete. But I said, it's $10,000, you know, that's incentive. I'm quarantined, I'll do it, sure. And I had a couple of ideas, and I submitted a couple. My first idea was Master Calendar, which you may or may not have heard of. It's currently in the marketplace. It was too complex to finish in the time allotted. So my second idea was Scheduler. Scheduler is basically Calendly, but within Airtable. It lets you reserve something without double booking for that same time slot. And I was pretty happy. This is my first complete project I've done in React. And it was really for the thrill of it all and to fight the crippling boredom that was early quarantine. Anyway, I won.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I also submitted, which didn't win, was a check-in and check-out system. And someone reached out to me and said, hey, this is really close to what I need, but I need a little bit of tweaks. Can you customize it for me? And then I said, I mean, I guess. But now I'm starting to do a side business, and I need a company name, of course. And so, you know, thinking back to my roots in middle school, I decided to name my, company Kamille, because it has air in the name. You know, very convenient. I've turned my weakness into a strength. How wonderful. And then over the past few years, I've built several Airtable-based projects. One of them, Master Calendar, currently on the marketplace. I think that's the one that people use the most of the ones I've released. If anyone's heard of Gareth Pronovost or Gap Consulting, yes, I see a couple of their Gap consultants in the room. If you've ever used Gap's consulting services, or you are yourself one of the consultants, I built the system that either takes your money or gives you money. And then something that I have released on the universe, which anyone can go grab now, is a time interval reporting base template, which basically lets you take any series of records, maybe their transactions, maybe their notes, maybe their appointments or something that has a date associated with them, and allows you to group them automatically into reporting records. So if you wanted to quickly get a chart of all of your 2020 records, 2021 records, or based on month, or based on week, or based on day, this base, which is in the universe, if you just look up my name, will allow you to do that. And now I work at Apple as an Airtable configuration engineer, and it probably makes more sense with this version of the timeline. And the reason why they're two separate timelines is because it might seem like there's no overlap between me as an urban planner and me as an Airtable configuration engineer. And it's because there's none. There's no overlap, and I tried making it one timeline, and it didn't make any sense. Me redoing my website is a nightmare because I have to explain what it is I do, and I would wish that I had a more streamlined definition for my two interests that are very disparate. But at the end of the day, I enjoy helping people in some way. Obviously, as an urban planner, it's much more high level. I'm thinking 40 years in the future. And with Airtable, it's very much, how can I help somebody now? Well, that was my life story. I'm in the building, and the last thing I need to do is solve some sort of problem. Again, I like helping people. So now is the part where anyone can just sort of ask me a thing. I have been primed with at least one question from Ben. For anyone, if anyone wants to see that one. His question was, how do I get the fifth item in a comma-separated array, such as like if you have a linked record field with 5 or more things, and you specifically want the fifth one, or a multi-select field, you can do that with regex. Other than that, I will take questions from the audience and do my best to try to solve it. We'll see how this goes.
On the spot.
Yes. You can start there. It seems like it'll be quick.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that sounds like a fun question.
Have a good one.
All right, well, now it's thinking as it tries to go away.
So do we have some constraints on what types of things in the list are?
I will, for that question, or the list of things to ask
If
me.
you're trying to find the fifth item, I think you need to
Yeah,
find out.
there's a couple of different caveats. So I'm expecting a comma-separated list. If your list of items itself has a comma, that would be an issue. That's probably the main thing that will get you. There's going to be edge cases as well, but like, this is what happens when you do live demos of things.
There's also a request to repeat the question.
Oh, so Ben's question was, how do I get the fifth item in an array of some kind, right?
Not an array, a text list.
It is an array.
It is an array?
Yeah, his was an array. Or it could be a text list as well. It doesn't actually matter for the implementation I'm doing. I say it doesn't matter, it matters, but it's a very technical answer. You're seeing now how the sausage is made. Over the years of me doing stuff on the Airtable forums, I have created my own workspace called Airtable Community that has a lot of different bases in here. No shade to anyone, but a lot of them go under basic cases, and if it's a very complex use case, you get your own base that I just never share with anybody. I think I want to go under split text. This, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. The answer is regex, and you're not going to be able to memorize this, so I'm going to probably paste this into the Built on Air Slack community. Plugging now, join the Built on Air Slack community where sometimes I answer questions. And also you'll get updates for when our podcast goes live every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard. But the general idea is for this specific use case, again, it works with plain text string as I'm showing here. 5 different things separated by a comma and a space. It doesn't necessarily need to be a space inserted as well. But this is the formula that I wrote. I'm going to explain what this is, and then again, I'll paste this into the Slack community so you have it. Name, that is the string of text I'm looking into. And then the pattern that I want to look for. I have 5 copies of the same thing, essentially. I have what are called capture groups, which are contained within parentheticals. I'm looking for a specific character, and that character is anything that's not a comma. That's what that means. This means 0 or more, not a commas. In this case, Greg space person is not a comma, and it's 0 or more, not a commas. So that's what's being captured. The second one is 0 or more commas. This is a comma. So that's the second thing that's being captured. And then that pattern repeats. And now I'm saying, of that pattern, of all of those capture groups that I'm showing, give me the 9th one. The reason why I'm pulling the 9th one over here in the 5, so if I go back to 1, I want to get the first one, because that is the first series of not commas. If I want to get the second name, I don't want the second capture group, because the second capture group is the comma. The third one is not a comma, comma, not a comma, etc. So you're basically getting every odd numbered thing for this particular implementation. Anyway, another question that isn't this. Yes, Kavan, I will preface, she's better at regex than me.
Could you add error checking to it so that if, for example, there are
Yes. Will I do it live? No. So what I've done, and just really quickly for this implementation, I don't need columns 1 through 4 to get to 5. I could skip just to 5. I just wanted to show if you wanted the 4th one, you would pick 7 instead of 9. The function I'm using is regex replace. That is expecting the pattern that I've implied. But if I start removing, if I remove commas, or this one doesn't have commas at all, right? It's going to take basically the whole thing and put it in there, because that's what I've told it to do. None of those are commas. That's the first capture group. There you go. That's not technically an error. But there is another function that Airtable provides called, there's regex match, which will give you a true-false value of whether or not your string matches the pattern you've said it does. If it doesn't match that pattern, then it will give you a false, which you can use an if statement to say, if false, then there's something wrong with your thing. If true, then that. And then it'll give you Gen Red, who is now number 4, because I removed that comma. Yes?
I have a question. Maybe this is something that already exists, but is there something that you could use to track like how much time you spend on stuff? So say you spend your entire day in the Airtable universe. You're basically something that makes your timesheet super easy, because you're just like boom, boom, oh, okay, now I know where I spend my time.
Yes, so it depends on how you want to track it. So for my invoicing, what I personally do, I use, I estimate number of hours, and then rather than counting with a duration field, I just say I worked 7 hours, the number 7. So I think this kind of goes into personal preference. If you are, if this is something you're,
Well, I guess I should clarify, like, it's telling you, you don't do anything. You just work your day away, and at the end of the day, it's
Rescue
like,
rescue time.
rescue time.
yeah, I think
So
that's
rescue time. Have you used rescue time?
I haven't used it, but I've used something similar. What it basically watches your habits for you.
Yeah, and it gives you a break. So that's what I use for all my productivity.
Yeah.
So my clients, if you just go to rescuetime.com, and then it exports as a CSV.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
Like,
it just
and
takes you-
I prioritize mine too by like wasted.
Yeah.
So like yeah.
All right, check this out. Thank you for the question.
Sometimes you don't need to build a tool. You
Yeah.
just need to
Well, that's-
incorporate
I
one.
figured if anyone would know, it would be
This room, yes. Yes.
My question is more structure based.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have projects and multiple people working on that project, and that's one record, the project and then the people assigned to it. If you want to track something like a predetermined lift for each person's role based on the type of project, how can you templatize that? So what would be defined would be the type of project and the role of the people working on it.
Let's see.
Here we go.
I think
Here we
we're
go.
going to have to build a base. And I'm going to do my best to sort of talk through this. So the question for those in the back who didn't hear it, you have either a project or a task that is assigned to more than one person, and there's an estimated level of effort or number of hours to associate with the people working on that particular task and or project. Is this something where each person is expected to work a different number of hours? They have different expectations for them.
Yeah.
So,
This is what I wanted to watch someone's brain work. Because I published on Keynote for Kamille. I don't know how you think about it.
Right, it could work either way. Maybe I would just start, I was just gonna like rate it as on a level of 1 to 5, like how hard it is, you know? Rate.
But waiting, like, level of importance.
Like wait, yeah.
is that at the task level or at the individual expectation level?
At the task level.
Okay.
Yeah. But per role. So let's say let's do grocery store. Check out a customer. A manager would have like a 0, but the cashier would have a 5 because that's their job. And then the bagger would have a 6 because it's harder to bag than it is to ring them up.
So what you could do, I'm going to talk before I start building. You could have a record template that is based on predictable tasks, and that would come in with whatever weight is assigned. Or you could have a template table if there's something more variable and you need something a little bit more flexible to it. So what I would probably do, I would have a table full of roles where I would link to the task itself. I would have a link to people. I don't know if I have time to build a people table, so I'll do a single select field instead. Chris, you're in my base.
I've dreamed of this moment.
So here's us.
I'm sorry.
We're
I'm
both
not
assigned to task
I still
one.
like girls.
You know, and then we would have our expectation, right?
pretty.
Or something like that, or estimate. And that would be, I think, either a number or a rating field, depending on how you want to do it. I'm going to do an integer. I'm going to say Camille's going to work perhaps 1, and Chris is going to work 3. On this level, back at the task level, I would roll up the total number. But then when you're actually assigning or tracking how many did each person do against that number, you might have another field here called actual. Now, if this is a template, there's a couple of different ways you might accomplish the template. Yeah.
And then in the template, you would just need every permutation of standardized task and role to pull from when it happens.
Yeah, if you're going with the template table route, that's what you would do. There are a couple of different resources to make that easy. There's a script that's in the marketplace available for free that creates every possible permutation between 2 different tables. It's already there. It's called junction table, junction records or something like that. I have an app called Junction Assistant. I don't care if you use that one or not, but it would help you build the same sort of relationship. And then I think there's another script also in the marketplace that builds relationships between 2 different tables like that, every possible permutation, but a little bit more selectively. I don't know the naming difference between the 2.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yay.
I'm happy.
Yay. Someone's happy, and that's all I wanted. I could stop now because someone's happy, or two people are happy.
He's happy too.
Oh my God. All right. Do I hear four? Four people happy. Any other questions?
Your wish is her command line.
Yeah. Ben, do you have another one for me?
So there's that create junction table script.
Yeah.
How would you take that and make it accessible through your own automation?
So, the question was the create junction record script, how would you make it accessible in an automation and not script based?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is this your bias showing?
Ooh,
So
shade.
what you could do, so let's say,
That one you can dump straight in, can't you?
I mean, you can, but if you wanted to do something that didn't involve a script at all, I'm gonna just say, this is bad practice, you should have a formula as your primary field.
Yeah.
I just
Are
need
you
values
doing a
in
whole
here so you
session
can
on
see the
best
difference.
practices?
If you wanted to build an automation that linked to every record in another table, what you could do is first, I'm sure you've heard from all of the great other sessions, you must be very considerate of which trigger you select for your automation. Let's pretend that this is one of the rare times when a record is created is the trigger that you want. I'm going to say table 1 for the purposes of this demo and choose B because it has no links in it yet. What you might do is use a find record step. Caveat, the find record step can only find up to 100 records. It can't find any more than that. There's workarounds to have it continue after it's done with that, but we don't have time to demo that part. But what I want to do is I want to find every record in roles, again up to 100. I have to either pick a condition or review. Something that I like to do is make sure that the name is not empty. I'm going to test that really quickly. And then now I have those two records in that other base. And then what I would do is just do an update record step. I'm updating table 1 with the same record that triggered this automation. And then I'm filling in that roles table with the list of record IDs pulled from the find record step. I could also do the list of names. It's best practice to use the list of record IDs in case you had two records that are named the same thing. Airtable's not going to know the difference between the two based on name alone. So list of Airtable record ID, and that's how you would get to it. If you had a table that had substantially more than 100 records for which you would need to link all of them to the other, you might consider doing this in reverse. So there's several implementations where every record in one table must be linked to one specific record in another table. You would set up the link the opposite way. You would update that one record that needs to be linked to everything else with that list. Yes?
So my workaround for that would be to use a trigger when a record enters a view, and you have the table with over 100 records. You set a view where all those records enter a view, it triggers 100 times, and each time it triggers, well, it wouldn't select all of them. I guess you would do it in the other way where it would create a record from, well, that's probably what you were about to say. I was just thinking that that's one way around having things happen over that many times.
Yeah, and the other workaround I typically use, I'm sorry, is to use a run a script action, which just pulls a query of the entire base, or not the entire base, the entire table or the entire view, which could be an array longer than 100, and then I just take that array and insert it into the record set. Chris?
I have a wish.
Yes.
So I have a conference, and people like to spam the awards. So I just want to have a list of things people can vote on, and I want a way that they can only vote once. So maybe if they put their email in twice, it gets rid of the second one, so it checks. Could you help?
Yeah. assuming that was your system, let's say that you are guy.
Because I'm thinking there'd be like a form they would fill out to vote or something.
You have to select yourself from the form to vote. You could do it that way, and someone could steal your.
Well,
But
what
you can only
could
vote
do,
once.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do that, so the potential solution is to have the email as a selectable option on the form, but it does expose everyone's emails possibly to who's looking at it. Or you could have it depends on how you're getting this information. If it's a form that's submitted out to
And I would think they
people,
would type their email in, so they wouldn't select it.
if they type it in, you would end up with records in Airtable like this,
Yep.
where you have guide email and guide email.
And the thing they selected.
So what you would do, if I wanted to check for duplicates,
And then not count them in the list.
what you could do,
some.
let's see, maybe you have a value where your number is 1. The default is 1. This is the value of your vote, because every vote matters unless you're a duplicate. What you could do is say when record is created or when form is submitted. That might be a better trigger
Yep.
for you. But I will do table 1, and then I'll pick my second one. This is the second time Guy
Yep.
has submitted it. What I might do, I would do find records. I want to find records within that same table following a condition. Sorry, zoom out a little. I want to find where name is. I don't want to say contains, because it is possible that someone's email is similar to someone else's, and we want to be fair. I want to choose dynamic, and I want to get the same email as that. What I would also want to check for is that the record ID is not the same as the one that submitted it, right? Because I don't want to double count this. I don't have that column, so I'm going to do something slightly different. Do you have a suggestion?
It's a follow-up, go ahead.
Okay. So I want to find, do I have another record with that same email? I'm going to test. I have 2 results. If I were testing for record ID, I should only have 0 results, right? But I have 2 in this case. I would do a conditional logic.
1. It finds itself.
Well, yes. Well, I want to say where record ID is not that. So I should have 0, but I would have 1 if I had a duplicate.
Right.
Or 3 if I have duplicates.
And then if it was by category, you would just say not that category.
Right. You
Okay.
could add to as many different conditions.
Because we have 4
as-
categories.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can vote for multiple different things,
Yep.
but you can't vote for the same category twice. So that would be
Exactly.
another condition that
Okay.
you would add. But I want to run a conditional action, but only if this list is greater than 1.
Oh.
Right? If I have more than 1 submission for this category of vote for Guy at whatever, then what I might do is update this record that triggered it, this new one that just came in, and I might change the value
To 0.
to 0.
Boom!
What you could do is delete the duplicate.
That's
but
what I
you might
want.
want to try to keep it just so that you know, hey, this
Be like,
guy,
"Hi, you're a jerk."
what are you doing? Because if it's deleted, it's hard to surface
Yeah.
back up. You can go into your trash, but how do you know that the automation deleted it? You could set it to alert you that, hey, Guy has submitted yet again. My goodness.
So Dominion voting should use this.
Yeah.
This is what you might do.
That's good. I love it. Kavan gave me something. I just wanted to see you walk through the process.
Sure. And we had a follow
I
up.
have a follow-up on this.
Yes.
My bot, I've noticed, is no longer incrementing the votes. So my email, chrisdarby@gmail.com, I'm now having the bot increment by 1. So Chris Darby 1, Chris Darby 2.
Oh.
Is there a way that you can set this automation of send an email validation and then somehow get that back?
Oh, you probably could.
Yes and no. So if it's Chris Darby 1 at email.com or something like that, and the number increments up. It's hard based on how it's incremented, because like there
I'm
might.
sending it into ChatGPT. It's creating all sorts of fake emails.
Well, sure, but there might be more than one person on earth named Chris Darby. So to be fair to all the Chris Darbys in the world, how do I know that the real second Chris Darby didn't actually
Which
submit
is
it?
why I'm asking, is there a way to automate an email that goes out when they send in their form? They have to click it and then the validation comes back somehow.
You can. So what you might do, right? We're back here. Someone has submitted a form. You can have an automation that anytime someone submits the voting form, an automation sends them an email and says,
Verify
we've
your vote.
received your request, please click this link to verify or whatever. That link can send you to a different form where
Yeah.
all you do is hit submit. In the URL is a hidden field that pulls in the record ID of the original voting thing that you did, so that when it comes in your validator, you know, all right, this vote was validated because they clicked the link and submitted that secondary form. All they did was hit the submit button, but it's passed in as the URL parameter. So that now is validated, and you can link them together. I'm not building this because this would take too long, but my explanation I think would work, and now it's validated.
Yeah.
Now,
I have an answer.
yes, Jen, please.
Make those HTTP requests. So if you click on a link, it will actually post to a webhook and give some information for Keynote. This core told us about that in OpenCenter meeting.
So what Jen says, you can use Make, and I do this myself. I've done several implementations where you have, you can send a nice little link within the body of an email that pushes to a webhook provided by Make, and that fires off some kind of automation. You control what it does. That does something in the back end. In this case, instead of submitting another form, it would do that for you sort of immediately. And you could, because it's Make, you could connect it to any number of things that does some other sleuthing if you want. If you want to find, hey, is Darby number 4 connected to any sort of socials? If not, maybe it's not real. Then, that's something that you could do if you wanted to expand and be even cooler. Yes.
I think a simpler use case for this problem is start with a table of everybody who's at the conference.
Start with everyone, a table of everyone who's at the conference, because you know their emails.
And then basically, if the email doesn't match,
Then you can't vote.
And then if it does match, check for dupes.
Yes. That's a great implementation. So one more time, your answer was you have a list of people who paid for the conference. Start that as your email validation. And if you're not on the list at all, then your vote doesn't count. And if you are on the list but you're on there twice, then do the automation that we showed.
Oh, nice.
Kevon?
Do you want to hear my other ideas or suggestions?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a couple of things. One is if you use a native Airtable form, you require people to be logged in.
Yep.
It will then, you know that they have to have an Airtable ID on this, so it won't work for other cases. And then you can just roll up things with array unique.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, and then you don't even have to have any automations.
Yep.
But the other thing is what you might want to do is continue to have an automation where you do a search like this and use your sum like that, but rather than just saying the most recent one isn't, go back and change the one that you already found to be 0, so that if someone changes their mind and wants to vote on something
It's the
differently,
most
it
recent.
will only count the most recent one.
Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase because I have the mic. So Kevon's first example of how you could solve this, enable the form condition that you must be logged in to submit the form to Airtable. That requires you have an Airtable account. The second one is I'm assuming you have a table of votes and a table of people where you're linking each vote to a person, even if they've only voted once, so that you could use the array unique, because you have to link to something. Am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, well, because when you submit the form, you get a created by field that will have
Yes.
that person. And then in your roll of the votes for that category, you say, okay, in this category, I'm gonna roll up a count of the user field, but do array unique. Based
Okay.
on, Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated, but that kind of.
Well, but it's just as valid. So this is why you come to these conferences. You get more than one answer, and you know, depending on how you do it, especially if you want to check, has someone voted twice at all, or has someone voted twice in the same category? Because now, I don't know how your voting form works. Are you voting on each category separately?
No,
or is it
right now they're
one
just
form?
right now you just click a button to upvote it, like
Right now,
Reddit.
there is no form, and that's the problem.
Well, we're dealing with hypotheticals.
Yeah. But we'd like to make it better in the
But
future.
those are great. You know,
Yeah.
that's a great way to do it.
I really like having it if you have it where you see you have to be logged in, and then you cross-reference that email address
With your list of
with your
attendees.
list of people that are attending.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry.
Yes. One comment on the automation. We encounter this quite a bit. So what I'd like to do is have two tables. One is just for raw data. People can submit all sorts of garbage, and this is just for any kind of form. And they put in their email. You have your second table, which is your clean data. So you only create a record on the second table if you are seeing that email and that vote for the first time. So you might concatenate the email and concatenate the party they're voting for, and then check to see if that string of text already exists.
Nice.
So what Sherry says is to have an implementation where you have two different tables. The first one accepting any and all answers from the form, and the second one being filtered down to just the ones that are verified based on whether or not they're duplicates and whether or not they contain the appropriate data.
Yeah. Camille,
Well, you end up
we got to close up.
data set instead of
Airtable needs us to close up.
And then do you move the data by just linking to that? Once you're like, okay, this is good, you put in a linked record, which then is what pulls it into that other table, or you just
No, you actually are creating a record in your automation.
oh, so you're doing it through automation.
All right.
Well, thank you. I believe you're running up on time. Lorenzo.
An alternative, kind of like Sherry's as well, is when because you're sending out emails anyways, you could, as part of your email, send them a form link with these URL parameters with the record ID.
I like that one too.
So then you don't have to worry about emails.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Good
everyone
idea.
else gets one.
They get their one vote from their,
Yeah, they get an email, they say vote here.
Yeah.
their
Click
own
one
So-
button.
personalized
And they
vote.
don't have to put an email address in. They just
Yeah.
say,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if we start back from the original now, going back to how you get the form in the first place, when you sign up for the conference, your link to submit the voting form includes as a hidden URL parameter the record ID associated with you as an attendee. And that way you're forcing it to know who it's attached to already. Because I have multiple emails, maybe I sign up with one email and I use another one because my Airtable account is not associated with my business. That's just how I set it up. But that way you know who's associated from the get-go. And another great solution. Again, guys, Airtable conferences. Wonderful. And I believe we've run up on time. Thank you.